She died on a Tuesday and nobody knew her name. The paramedics found her collapsed on the rain-soaked sidewalk outside. Penn Station. Her worn canvas sneakers pointed toward the indifferent sky, one hand still clutching a plastic bag filled with aluminum cans. They worked on her for 17 minutes while commuters streamed past, their umbrellas forming a river of black and gray that flowed around the emergency, like water around a stone. Someone posted a video. Someone else complained about the traffic. By Wednesday morning, she was a statistic. Case number 2847, and the city had already moved on. But I couldn't move on, because 3 months earlier, she had saved my life. I'm not being dramatic. I mean it literally. On a suffocating July evening when the subway platforms felt like the anteroom to hell and my mind had become a dark, airless place I could no longer escape. She had looked at me, really, looked at me and said 4 words that pulled me back from the edge. Tomorrow might be different. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm a pediatric oncologist at Mount Sinai. Or I was. By July, I'd stopped being much of anything except a shell that went through the motions. 16 years of watching children fight battles they never should have to face, of holding the hands of parents as their worlds crumbled, of making impossible decisions in impossible situations. It had finally hollowed me out completely. The last straw came on a bright Tuesday when 7-year-old Emma Rodriguez, who loved purple butterflies and wanted to be an astronaut, lost her 2-year fight with leukemia. I'd been with her family since her diagnosis. I'd celebrated her good days and weathered her bad ones. I'd promised her mother we'd do everything we could. Everything wasn't enough. That night, I stood on the subway platform at 59th Street, and for the first time in my life, I understood why someone would step forward instead of back when the train approached. The yellow warning strip seemed to glow with a terrible invitation. The tunnel exhaled its hot, metallic breath. My feet moved closer to the edge. "Excuse me, miss." The voice came from behind me, tentative but persistent. "Miss, do you have the time?" I turned, annoyed at the interruption of my dark reverie, and found myself looking at a woman who might have been 50 or 70, with weather-beaten skin, graying hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, and eyes that were startlingly clear and blue. She wore layers despite the heat, a denim jacket over a flannel shirt, cargo pants with permanent stains. A shopping cart filled with bags and bottles stood beside her. I began, but she stepped closer, and those blue eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made me forget what I was going to say. "I asked the wrong question," she said softly. "What I meant to ask is, are you okay?" 3 simple words. Are you okay? When was the last time anyone had asked me that? My colleagues at the hospital asked about caseloads and treatment protocols. My mother called to complain about my father. My ex-husband texted about dividing the furniture. But no one asked if I was okay. "I'm fine," I said automatically. But my voice cracked on the second word, and suddenly I was crying, right there on the subway platform, sobbing like I hadn't sobbed since I was a child. The woman didn't touch me. She somehow knew I couldn't handle being touched right. But she positioned herself between me and the platform edge, a human barrier between me and the darkness. "It's a lot, isn't it?" she said. "Being a person in this world, carrying all that weight." I don't know how long we stood there. I cried until I had nothing left, until the tightness in my chest finally, mercifully loosened. When I could breathe again, I wiped my eyes and really looked at her. "How did you know?" I asked. She smiled, and it transformed her face, revealing traces of the beautiful young woman she must have been. "I've stood where you're standing. Different platform, same place. Someone pulled me back, so now I pay attention." We sat on a bench and she talked. Not about herself, not yet, but about the small things she noticed every day. The teenager on the 2 train who always gave up his seat for elderly passengers. The bodega owner on 47th who left day-old bread outside for the pigeons. The nurse at the clinic who learned how to say, "You're going to be okay," in 17 languages. "The world is full of cracks," she said, "but it's also full of people trying to fill them. You just can't see it when you're down in the dark." I asked her name. She hesitated, then said, "People call me Blue, for the eyes." She pointed to her own face and smiled again. "I'm Sarah," I said, "and I'm a doctor, or I was. I don't know anymore." "You still are," Blue said firmly. Having a hard day doesn't change what you are. Having 100 hard days doesn't change it either. You're just tired. There's a difference. I spent 2 hours with her that night. She told me about her life in fragments, pieces of a mosaic I had to assemble myself. She'd been a teacher once in Vermont. Married, 2 kids. Then her husband died suddenly of an aneurysm, and she discovered he'd gambled away everything they had. The house went to foreclosure. Her in-laws blamed her, poisoned her relationship with her children. Depression swallowed her whole. She lost the teaching job, lost her apartment, lost herself. That was 23 years ago, she said matter-of-factly. I've been out here since then. My kids are in their 40s now. Got grandchildren I've never met. She said it without self-pity. Just stating facts. I tried to go back a few times. Got clean, got housing, got a job stocking shelves at Target. But I kept breaking. The walls felt like they were crushing me. Out here I can breathe. Don't you get lonely? I asked. Lonely? Honey, I talk to more people in a day than most folks talk to in a week. I'm invisible, sure, but I'm not alone. She gestured to the platform around us. I know everyone's stories here. The investment banker with the cocaine problem. The single mom who works 3 jobs. The kid who's sleeping in the park because his dad kicked him out for being gay. I see them. And sometimes on nights like this I can help. Before we parted, she made me promise something. Tomorrow I want you to do one thing for someone else. Doesn't have to be big. Buy someone coffee. Hold a door. Smile at somebody who looks like they need it. Just one thing. Can you do that? I promised. And the next day, exhausted and red-eyed, I went back to work. I brought coffee for the nurses on the pediatric floor. I sat with Mrs. Chen, whose daughter was in remission, and listened to her talk about her plans for Christmas. I smiled at the medical student, who'd botched an IV insertion and told her about the time. I'd fainted during my first surgery observation. It didn't fix everything. Emma was still gone. The world was still full of suffering. But Blue was right. Tomorrow was different. Different enough to keep going. I started looking for her after that. I'd stop by Penn Station on my way home, scanning the crowds for her shopping cart, those blue eyes. Sometimes I'd find her and we'd talk. I brought her food, clean socks, a good winter coat. She accepted the gifts but always deflected conversations about getting help or getting off the streets. This is where I need to be right now, she'd say. I'm doing my work here. And she was. Over the weeks, I watched her in action. She had an uncanny ability to spot people in crisis. The runaway teenager with a black eye. The elderly man confused and disoriented. The woman having a panic attack. Blue would appear, calm and centered. And somehow she'd know exactly what to say, exactly what to do. How do you do it? I asked her once. How do you have the energy to help everyone else when you're going through your own struggles? She looked at me for a long moment. Because I remember what it feels like to be drowning. And I remember the person who threw me a rope. I can't pay her back. She died years ago, so I pay it forward. That's the deal. Then came October. I was in a departmental meeting when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your friend. Penn Station, hurry! I left without explanation. Ran the 6 blocks, pushed through the evening crowds. She was already gone by the time I got there. The paramedics were packing up. A police officer was taking statements. I showed him my medical credentials. Claimed I was her doctor, demanded to know what happened. Heart attack, looks like, he said, not unkindly. Quick, she probably didn't suffer much. He paused. You know her name? We've got her down as Jane Doe. Blue, I said. Her name was Blue. He wrote it down, but I could see it didn't matter. She'd still be processed as an unclaimed body, buried in a potter's field somewhere. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what she'd said. I can't pay her back. So I pay it forward. And I thought about all the people she'd helped over the years. All the lives she'd touched. All the dark moments she'd interrupted with her presence. How many people had she pulled back from edges, literal and metaphorical? How many of us were walking around because she'd taken the time to ask if we were okay? The next day I started making calls. I tracked down her children through old records I had no right to access. Her daughter, Jennifer, lived in Connecticut. When I called and explained who I was, there was a long silence. I haven't seen my mother in 20 years, Jennifer finally said, her voice tight. She left. She chose that life. She didn't leave you, I said carefully. She got lost. and she spent every day trying to find her way back by helping other people find theirs. She saved my life. And I know she never stopped loving you. Another silence. Then, what do you need? We held a memorial service for Blue for Mary Ellen Calloway, teacher, mother, grandmother, and guardian angel of Penn Station. 57 people showed up. Some were homeless themselves, others were commuters in business suits. A teenage boy spoke about how she'd convinced him not to run away. A woman talked about the night. Blue had called 911 when she was being followed by someone dangerous. I spoke about July, about standing on the platform edge, about 4 words that changed everything. Jennifer spoke last. She talked about her mother before, about the woman who made pancakes shaped like animals and could recite entire Dr. Seuss books from memory. She talked about how mental illness and grief had stolen that woman away, but how proud she was to learn that her mother had found purpose again, had become someone who mattered to so many people. I wish I'd known, Jennifer said, crying. I wish I'd looked for her. I wish I'd told her I understood. After the service, we started something. The Blue Project, a network of people trained to notice others in crisis. To ask the simple question, are you okay? We work the transit hubs, the parks, the places where the desperate and the invisible congregate. We're not counselors or social workers. We're just people who pay attention, who remember what it's like to stand at the edge, who believe that sometimes the right word at the right moment can change a trajectory. 3 months later, a young woman came to my office at the hospital. She was maybe 25, thin, haunted-looking. Are you Dr. Mitchell? She asked. The one who started the Blue Project? I nodded. I just wanted to tell you that last week. Someone with one of your cards stopped me in Central Park. I was going to... She stopped, swallowed hard. She asked if I was okay, and I said no, and she sat with me until I could breathe again. She probably saved my life. She left before I could respond, but she didn't need to say more. I understood. This was the deal. You couldn't always pay back, so you paid forward. Blue had saved me. I'd started a project in her honor, and now someone else was carrying it forward, creating ripples that would touch lives neither of us would ever know about. Sometimes I still stop by Penn Station on my way home. I look for the spot where Blue used to set up her cart, where she'd watch the crowds with those startling blue eyes, waiting for someone who needed her to see them. She's not there, of course. But sometimes I swear I can feel her presence. A reminder to keep paying attention, to keep asking the question, to keep pulling people back from their edges. Tomorrow might be different, she'd said. And because of her, for so many of us it was.